I'm Caitlin Moroney with the Global Voices interview series. I'm joined here with Professor Marc Edwards. Thank you so much for coming to talk with us.
Thank you for having me.
Sure thing. So before Flint, you exposed lead in Washington, D.C.'s water supply. How is the 2004 crisis in D.C. similar to or different from the episode in Flint?
It's like night and day. The D.C. lead crisis was about 30 times worse in terms of the amount of damage that was done to children. All of the government agencies that perpetrated that crime got away with it and even gave themselves awards. And it wasn't until 6 years of work and spending over $1 million that I was able to expose that thousands of children got lead poisoned by their own government. So it was a kind of a horrible journey for me because I started out trusting government agencies, particularly civil servants, the scientists and engineers who are the environmental policemen. And in my wildest dreams, I never thought they'd become environmental criminals like they were in DC. And even after it was exposed and Congress got involved and showed that everything I said was true, they never learned their lesson. So I knew that Flint was going to happen, and we were kind of preparing for the day when we'd have to fight our own government to rescue some American somewhere, and it just so happened to be in Flint.
Do you think it takes situations like this for the government to make the necessary changes to uphold like clean water standards?
I think people have to get fed up to the point they're out of their minds with anger. And I wish I could say that we learned our lesson from Flint, but the reality is EPA went down to Congress at the hearings I was at and lied under oath and said that they had nothing to do with what happened in Flint, Michigan, when in today's presentation you're going to see they had everything to do with it. And if our agencies are incapable of admitting their mistakes, incapable of feeling remorse, they're going to repeat it. And it'll happen again. Probably the miracle of catching them is not going to happen, though. So it's a sad commentary. We're not there yet. Our government institutions are failing us at just an unbelievable rate. It doesn't matter if it's the EPA, the Centers for Disease Control, the Veterans Administration. We have no ability, it seems, to hold these agencies accountable to us, to serve us. And so this is a real sad commentary on the state of government in America right now.
Have you always been interested in like the intersection of science and public policy or public health, or did it take these situations for you to like figure out that nexus?
I never thought I'd be doing what I'm doing today. I wanted to be an engineer. I grew up worshiping at the altar of science and engineering. I thought that was the path to all knowledge. I even joked, and I wish I was joking when I said humanities were for losers, but early on in DC I realized the problem was science and engineering is done by humans, and that's our weak point. And so I had to get a game, not just up my game, I had to get a game and figure out how to get involved with policy, how to expose wrongdoing. I mean, as you'll see, I had to become a part investigative reporter, part scientist, part activist. I had to learn all that the hard way. Thankfully, by the time Flint came, we had it down pretty good. And the miracle that happened was really because all these people stood up and helped expose what was going on in Flint, what was happening to the city, and we got kids protected. And so that was a lot more satisfying than DC, where we just exposed after the fact that so much harm was done, irreparable harm, and no one ever said sorry. No, those families in DC never got a penny for what the government did to them. And again, it's civil servants, it's scientists and engineers. I mean, most people think this is so bad. Politicians must have had something to do with it. They didn't. I mean, the DC and Flint water crisis is just so bad, it restored my faith in politicians. They actually make the scientists and engineers look good by comparison. That's how bad it is.
So what kind of a role, I guess you've been speaking to this a little bit, but what kind of a role do you think academics or scientists have in situations of government failure?
Well, that's a very controversial subject because I've just been called out by one of the premier journals in my field for doing what I did in Flint is not something academics should do. And I was horrified to see this because we have, as professors, all this academic freedom. But frankly, we're trained cowards and we're the last people on earth to exercise that freedom. We view our job as being sucking up to funding agencies full time to get our funding, and that was the position of this editorial that is, Marc Edwards, what you did in Flint, yeah, it looked good, but we're going to be retaliated against and lose our funding. So this is why I feel justified in saying this generation of academics is the greatest generation of cowards in U.S. history. And I think it's counterproductive. I think to the extent we stand up and do the right thing, society will appreciate us and we will strengthen the social contract between society and academia. And I think this cowardice that we exhibit, this aloofness, this distancing us from the public, holding up in our ivory tower, is really one of the greatest threats to the future of science and engineering in this country. So I'm fighting hard to change that perception. I think Flint is a good example, but here we are today, and everyone in the world thinks that I did the right thing except some of my colleagues in my profession who have gone on record saying, don't do that again. Crazy.
So you've taught a class on ethics and heroism.
Mm-hmm.
Is that maybe your way of trying to shape the next generation?
Right. It is because, frankly, my generation's lost. We're old, we're cynical, we're willfully blind, we're cowards. We're part of the problem, not part of the solution. Now, there are exceptions, and I love academia, by the way. I think being a professor is the greatest job in the world. But that's the reality. And when I tell this Flint story to people around the country, the folks who get it most are the millennials. They understand that there's a problem. And when I speak about this cowardice in academia, they understand it because they see it. They feel that our institutions teach them. And this is true. This is one of the points of my class. Our institutions teach good ethical actors to be willfully blind cowards. History has shown you can do this. You can teach people to work in concentration camps and be perfectly happy. So I warn them about that. And my hope is really with them. You know, it's with young people, and that they're going to be a force for change, and they're not going to stand for this perverse incentive culture that we have in academia. That's my hope. I am the most optimistic person on the planet because I think we're going to change this system. I think we have to. Failure's not an option here. The stakes are too high.
So just one final question for you. What advice would you give to students who are interested in environmental justice or just social justice movements in general for like specific opportunities or learning experiences?
Okay. I think the key thing I've learned is that environmental injustices exist for a reason. They're occurring in a blind spot, and if you go in there, there's going to be someone who's very, very angry at you. And the other thing that's fascinating is one of the biggest special interest groups we have today is government. By and large, we have tamed many of the problems with industry through regulation, through making it good business to be ethical. And if you're unethical, we're going to make you pay through lawsuits and fines. And I think so many students, they're in this mindset of they want to fight the last war, which is the war against corporate America. But that is the last war. I mean, 50 years ago, that would have been a fruitful path to go. I think the problems I'm seeing, the most pernicious problems, are those with government agencies who are unaccountable, And they have no check and balance on their power. No one ever anticipated that civil servants would do what happened in Washington, D.C. or Flint, Michigan, with no profit motive whatsoever. And speaking out against a government agency, you do so at great peril, because these folks have a lot of power, a lot more power than industry. And they're very, very vindictive, and they never forget. They got the memory of an elephant. And if you prove them wrong, they're even madder at you. So I would suggest to people that they be very careful about thinking where the next war is going to be. But by its nature, fighting environmental injustice means making people mad. If it wasn't going to do that, it wouldn't exist in the first place. These blind spots are very pervasive. You got to seek them out, and you got to expose them. And I think, as we did in Flint, Michigan, once you expose an environmental injustice, people of all parties do the right thing. No one supports what happened in Flint, Michigan. Flint has received over $600 million to date. It's more than $60,000 per child in the city to try to right this wrong that we helped expose.
Thank you very much
Okay.
for joining with us. It was great
Thanks for
talking
having
with
me.
you.
Appreciate it.